All right. So, okay, there we go. Sounds like we're recording. Good to see everybody here. Over 100 people. Wow, that's pretty amazing to me. Hopefully, I have something that is worth you were listening. And that everybody ready for a holiday week next week? I know I am. I'm ready to take a week off for the Thanksgiving holiday. So just one second, a little bit of thing there. All right. So who am I? As Christina said, I'm Mike Sarmento. I'm a Colorado native. I've been with the district now for 35 years with various job titles. I started out as a student intern in the routine maintenance program, inspecting waterways for maintenance. But throughout my career, the primary requirement has always been that I was in the field. Being with the district and working in waterways inspired me to educate myself so I could better understand the world around me in a variety of forms. So about halfway through my career, which is, I'm within a few years of retirement now, went back to school and got a Associate's Applied Science in Water Quality, which basically just allows me to be like a water treatment plant operator. But I wanted to know everything there was about water. How do you keep it clean? You know, what's the process that we go through? And from there, I went on to get a bachelor's of science in land use with emphasis in ecological resources. And then finally, a master's of science in ecological restoration. So it's kind of funny that I've worked as a construction manager basically all of my career, but really I'm more on the environmental side, maybe not specifically water quality, but definitely with water quality always in mind. So I'm an observer. I'm an observer by nature and of nature. Most of my hobbies has something to do with waterways, whether it's wildlife and bird watching, learning to identify native plants and weeds and insects, or geology. As I said, I spent the first half of my career raising kids, having a family, building a home, and improving my skills as a construction manager. What I experienced during those first years led me to take a different tack with my career. And with the support of my colleagues at the Mile High Flood District, it's permitted me to do what I do now. Also, before we launch off, I do want to thank Christina Ramirez Bentley with the Keep It Clean partnership for having me, and Alicia Powell, who talked me into presenting to you guys. So thank you very much. So why are we here? Why are you here? And that I'd like you all to maybe put in a few answers, if you could, into the chat room, and we'll take it from there. And I love this poster. I'd like to start with a shout out to Christian Chavez. He's in grade 2 out of Tejon Elementary in National City, California. This was his poster presentation for Water is Life. And to me, it certainly is, after being in this career for 35 years. So what are your reasons for being a water quality professional? You know, what is it about your job that motivates you? And let's see. We'll take a couple minutes to let people go and put their answers in. Okay. So for me, I love seeing people out in nature, whether it's fly fishing or exploring nature in general, bicycling or power walking, whatever. And these two photographs kind of illustrate it. You see the smile on the little girl that the guy's fly fishing. I think she's having more fun than he is in that. And in some ways, I think what I do, it's the best job in the world. But I want you to remember those words. let's see. For example, with wildlife watching, this is a project on the upper left with the deer on Weir Gulch down off of 8th Avenue and I-25. Amazing that you would see deer in here. And this is during a construction project where we were basically enlarging a major drainage way and outfall, replacing an outfall system and a bridge that was a part of the Platte River Greenway through there. So the opportunities within urban areas to see wildlife are just phenomenal. And throughout my career, I've really enjoyed that. I try to do a little bit of photography. In the bottom right, you can see there's a family of about, I think there were about 5 or 6 raccoons that just, while I was out walking, they just came swimming up the creek and got out in front of me. So I love that kind of stuff. And that goes to things such as dragonflies. There are dozens of species of dragonflies in the Front Range area. Trying to capture them with a camera is really a exercise in frustration. But when you get 1 or 2 good photos, it's really fun. And that's another cool thing about working on waterways through there. And as we all know, dragonflies are indicators of good environmental health. This is a photo off of First Creek out in the Denver area off of about 56th and Door Road. And the thing I like about this, it is First Creek, is this huge field of equisetum. And equisetum, if you know anything about it, it's a holdover from the Ice Age. And it's found along many stream systems, if not most stream systems throughout the Front Range. At one time in history, reading on this, it grew to be nearly 100 feet tall. And in the bottom right is a Colorado native wildflowers, the Rocky Mountain bee plant. And that's another thing I love about the vegetation within our drainage ways, our waterways, is the opportunity to see so many Colorado native plants like this one, which is really well used by different pollinators, as we all know, which are suffering right now due to a huge variety of causes. So with today's program, we're going to kind of loosely follow this. It's not a technical presentation. It's not a presentation on, how to install and use various BMPs. It's just kind of what you see on this slide here. I'll talk a little bit about the district. I'll talk about routine maintenance, and I am the district's manager for routine maintenance within Boulder County. I also will be taking over part of Arapahoe County this upcoming January 1st. So routine maintenance is dear to my heart. We'll talk about permits. Then the first rule of working in waterways, not to be confused with the first rule of Fight Club, which is the second rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Well, we'll always talk about the first rule of working in waterways. We'll talk a little bit about construction, a little bit about some post-construction BMPs and ecological restoration, and then hopefully have a little Q&A time at the end. I have to confess that I haven't timed this presentation. It will be somewhere between 1 and 3 hours, so bear with me. And I'm wondering, does anybody who know what this handsome guy in the right-hand corner is?
We're getting a lot of mud puppies in the chat.
It
is not an axolotl like I suggested to Mike.
Well, I think mud puppies is probably another colloquial name for it. This is actually the Colorado state amphibian, much to my surprise, in that it is the western tiger salamander. It is an indicator species for water quality, and it's found in all 64 counties and ranges from the Eastern Plains up to 12,000 feet. Unbelievable. So it spends the first half of its life as an amphibian, and then with the gills that you see here, and then it later matures into the mud puppy that you speak of. Funny little story about it. The fossil record on this, by the way, goes back 150 million years. That my wife Cindy, as a young girl, lived in a family cabin up Deer Creek Canyon in Jefferson County, and she told me that her brothers, two brothers, and her sister used to have salamander races when they were kids. Amazingly, there are salamanders still living in that same pond today. So what is the Mile High Flood District? It's created in 1969. It's a multi-jurisdictional entity, as you can tell. We cover 7 counties, parts of 7 counties, and serve about 32 municipalities. There's 1,600 lineal miles of major streams through there. However, we only touch a tiny fraction of the tiny stream system that you see within the boundaries on this little map outline here. We're quasi-governmental, which means that really we're kind of a privatized government organization. We don't have a public works department. We don't even own pickups or cars. We use our own. Everything that we do, we basically put out to the public. So whether that's consulting, engineering, we manage the process along with our great array of environmental and ecological consultants that we have. And then on the construction end, we have a group of highly qualified drainage way contractors that we pay to do the projects that you see us do, whether that's picking up trash off your local waterway, doing sediment removals, to major capital construction projects into the tens of millions of dollars. So let's see. That being said, we are property tax based, and all of that money, as I said, gets rebated back to the local government in the community in the form of different services. So a little bit about evolution, the evolution of myself, we've talked about a little, and the evolution of the district. And I kind of like this graphic right here, the guy at the far end using a gun to say, yep, you're going to keep moving along and keep on growing and changing. And that's definitely been my experience over the last 35 years. Of course, we'll move on from there. I put a little asterisk there, just kind of illustrate a story I had where, as a young inspector technician, when we were doing the changeover from basically film cameras to digital cameras, I went to my then manager and said, well, you know, I'd like to start getting in on this. I'd like to have a digital camera, make things a lot easier. And he made me sit down and write basically a position paper, an argument paper about why we should transition from film cameras to digital. I had to outline the hundreds of dollars that we spent on film processing each month, the lag in time that it took in getting photos printed, not to mention the storage space for archiving photos and the time involved in scanning them on the copier to put them into emails and documents, when I had rather thought that the benefits were kind of self-evident. So that's just a little bit about the evolution. So the district has been reinventing itself. As I think most people are aware, we're now the Mile High Flood District instead of the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District. We were a pretty small staff when I first started at the district. I think our total engineering construction management crew was 12 people. Today, we're somewhere around, I think, 35 or 36 people. We did a very minor reorganization back in 2006 when we were all siloed. So the maintenance program was one entity, department by itself, and the design and construction program was by itself on the other side of the building. And then, so we came together at that point. And it pretty much stayed that way until around 3 or 4 years ago, when we began this massive reorganization process, which culminated in a watershed approach, which is what you see in front of you now. So the district, rather than being broken down by county, it's broken down by watershed. And basically, and when we talk about a watershed, well, what's important about a watershed? Well, it's the ecological health. A healthy watershed conserves water, promotes stream flow, supports sustainable streams, rivers, lakes, and groundwater sources, enables healthy soil, and also provides habitat for wildlife and plants. So for us, instead of having individual departments or programs that staff were all siloed into, now each watershed has a one-stop shop where all the services that the district provide are contained within each one of those watersheds. There's a specific team that's set up that can take you through the full suite of services that we provide. I would like to let you know that it wasn't until January 2020 that we hired our first environmental manager. So sometimes time comes about fairly slowly. Lastly, as you all know, we rebranded ourselves in the summer of 2019, changing it from UDFCD to the Mile High Flood District. Excuse me just a second. So if you go to our website, you click on services, this is the drop down that shows right here. And let me get my cursor over there. And basically, this is just a bare bones list of services that we provide. One of the very important things that is missing from this list is our information services department. This includes an amazing staff that updates and maintains our website, our GIS services, and more. Also wanted to let you know that very soon we'll be launching a new portal for you to connect with the district in a very real-time interactive way. So whether that's making requests for maintenance, whether it's additional debris removals, or you've seen a problem that's occurred out there, a failing structure, head wall, what have you, whether you're a consultant looking to look up mapping, what have you, you'll be able to log on, have your own account, and basically interact back and forth real time with the district staff. All right, so I'll talk a little about our flood warning program. And I use this pretty much on a daily basis. It's available to everyone through our alert system. And with the two graphics that I have here, the one on the upper left is shows our system of stream and precipitation gauges throughout the district boundary and beyond, actually. This particular one was taken, a screenshot was taken during the flood of 2013, which, as we all know, hit Boulder really hard. In fact, if you look up here at some of the numbers, this is precipitation within the last hour. And I think some of these numbers are pretty high. I see almost 5 inches in one spot, 2 inches in another, and so on. So it's really good information to have. We basically partner with Skyview Weather Forecasting and the National Weather Service to put out messages to our local government partners about what's happening with the storm systems that are coming in, and whether there needs to be a flood warning. You know, it really is a good service. I use it with my contractors to let them know, hey, you know, something's coming, you know, keep an eye on this through here. And that follows with the photograph on the right, which is basically another screen capture, just showing what the current or really the last 3-hour weather situation has been. So, for example, the blue that you see right here, that would indicate snow, and then the green, just precipitation. And you can see this in real time as it transpires across your area or across the district. So when I'm, you know, I look at that when I'm at home, even just to see what the weather is. Okay, so then we have our operations and development, and which is operations/development, our research program, our department, and these two articles are contained within our criteria manual. They kind of speak to the beneficial and functions of the floodplain through here. And as you can see, water quality is a huge concern. It's something that our board is very concerned about. And so these are our policies. I'll let you read a little bit on that real quick, and then we'll move on from there. The other really nice thing about this program is they continually update our criteria manuals. In addition, they help promote and evaluate our research efforts, whether it is specifically water quality based or whether we want to evaluate new types of BMPs. Currently, we have a green roof at the Denver Botanical Garden. We have rain gardens in Lakewood. We've got sites where we've tested out porous concrete. And one interesting project that I was a part of was the construction of the Houston Lake Water Quality Treatment Forebay in Denver. And more about that in just a second. One thing I would like to say is with the district, we're really a education and research-based organization. So we're always looking for people to come to us, our local government partners, our consultants, or contractors. And if you've got a new thing that you want to try out, whether it's water quality, BMP, or what have you, we definitely can make that happen. We're always looking for active participation by others. So let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in. And I'm pretty sure most of you are at least somewhat, if not very familiar with our criteria manual. I think of particular interest to this group is volume 3, which speaks to an incredible array of topics that address water quality in one form or another, including BMPs, vegetation, and lots more. It's definitely a definitive work on stormwater quality and well worth your time just taking a read through on it. So about the Houston Lake Water Quality Project that I helped manage. This is in Denver. And as you can see, there's this huge lake that is surrounded by pretty old residential community. I think it dates back to, it could be back to the 20s or 30s. Not a lot of stormwater infrastructure as far as inlets and stormwater pipes underground. Most of the runoff from this occurs as street runoff conveyed by cross pans and actually enters, at least on the northern part, directly into the lake. And that would be in this area right here. There we go, sorry. Okay, So a couple of photographs to illustrate this. So this is a street. Here's the residential. These have the old alleyways with dumpsters in them. Water comes down the curb and gutter, down the alleys, and that funnel is funneled to the curb and gutter within the major street collector streets, and then enters the lake through these little curb openings here. And in particular, as you look at this one on the left, there's a dumpster sitting here. This is basically for the park, and that not a real good water quality placement for that particular one. And the water just goes straight through here. There's a little sidewalk, and then it dumps directly into the lake. You can see it from the other vantage point. Here's the lake back here. And then we had a recent storm event. It's kind of ponded right here. And so we come up with a engineering design for water quality. And what it consisted of is taking a tiny part of the northeast corner of the park and rethinking and redoing everything out there to try to help treat some of the stormwater runoff through here. What we did is we took out the old curb and gutter that ran along right here. We built new parking places along it for people to pull in and actually to use the park a little more easily. And these would have curbs on it with slit openings to allow water to enter into this big series of small detention areas. These detention areas have an under drain system to them that ultimately drains out to the lake itself. There is a flood control overflow conveyance you see right here, where I don't know what the storm event is that it overtops, but for the most part, it treats 90% of the water of the storm events that occur within these areas right here. Basically, these are made up of the subsurface is made up of a variety of different media, such as sand, some other things to help treat the different chemical constituents that filter through and then end up returning much cleaner water to the lake itself. And so when we're looking at it, this is just immediately post-construction. You can see where we did the pullouts. You can see the little water orifices that go through here to allow the water to infiltrate within the pond. It goes down, filters out, and then goes into the lake. Denver Public Works comes by on a regular basis, and they do street sweeping through here. And that gets a lot of the organics and a lot of the other trash that maybe you can see over here on this part. It's really kind of a low profile water quality treatment thing, but I think it's made massive improvements to the lake itself. So then we have our watershed management master planning. These master plans are continually updated and serve as guidance documents for communities, as well as the district's capital and maintenance construction programs. They are continuing to evolve to take into account opportunities for a wide variety of things beyond just flood control and drainage. Citizen input is a really important process of putting together any master plan. And I know that within the older community, there's a number of them, whether they're recreational or what have you. Our waterways serve as multi-purpose corridors, for example, incorporating maintenance paths that serve the community for biking, hiking, and connecting with the great outdoors. For example, you can bike from the town of Parker to downtown Denver and beyond on the South Platte River Trail. And with the Cherry Creek Trail, you can go from basically Aurora through downtown Denver, where it ultimately connects up with the South River Trail. Okay, next we have our floodplain management and maintenance eligibility program. And I spent a couple years within this program when it was siloed. And a couple of things that I want to pass on to you or share with you is we do have an active program that purchases properties that are within the floodplain. So we're always looking to our local governments to provide us with opportunities where we can remove homes, businesses or whatever, and help basically protect our community around here. Every April, we send out flood awareness brochures to every single residence or address within the entire district. This group also does flood hazard area delineation studies. This is where we work together with FEMA and the local government. And we just kind of figure out, well, where's the floodplain? You know, what are the hazards that we're seeing out here? And it's a really wonderful service that we provide to you. Then we have our maintenance eligibility program, and that's the program that I specifically worked in. And the interesting thing about it is 70% of all stream improvements within the district come about from private development or other government agencies. And what we do within that program is we review all projects that are in or adjacent to the floodplain. And the carrot that we provide on that is if the developer or the local government will allow us to be a part of the design process, helping to guide it, as well as a part of the construction process so that we can make sure that it's built according to how we approved it, then the carrot is it is then eligible for maintenance from the district from then on. And the cost is 100% our cost at the district. So whether that's routine maintenance services or whether that's flood damage, like you saw in the 2013 flood, what have you, that's all on us. And at each step of the process, we put out certification letters. So that would be that once we're happy with the design approval letter, and we work back and forth hand in hand with the local government, with the consultants that are hired by the developers, and the district will issue that design approval letter. From there, it goes into construction. We send out an inspector to make sure that everything is built according to the plans and the specifications, and also to act as a resource to the local government and the contractor on how to build drainage way improvements or stream improvements. It's a very specialized area of construction. So if that takes place and it ends up well, then we send out a construction approval letter. However, that's not the end of it. And that there's still the post-construction phase where we're looking for the vegetation to come back in, the site to be effectively restored. That generally takes about 1 to 3 years is what we're finding, and that especially in a non-irrigated native grass situation. And that, so we'll inspect that with the local government. We'll check to make sure that the vegetation is good vegetation and that we've got a minimum amount of noxious weeds through there. And once that's done and the site has exhibited stability over that 1 to 3 years, there isn't any active erosion occurring. Excuse me, not used to talking so much. And that the design is functioning the way that it was supposed to, then we'll issue the final acceptance. And at that point, it's totally up to the local government to say, hey, we'd like to go ahead and have you guys manage this for us, take care of it. And that helps you to leverage your dollars and get more done. So going from there, excuse me, the development throughout the district I think throughout Boulder too, has just been phenomenal over the last several years. I think we'll all agree. I took this photo. This is out in the Aurora area, and I'm standing in the middle of a roadway there. It's actually paved. I'm looking to the east, and as you can tell, it's farmland right now, but you can see there's a little bit of a drainage way kind of there too. And my point is showing this slide is that we're actively creating new stream systems and waterways in places where they've never been before. And these are major drainage ways that are occurring. And when I looked to the west, as I show right here, well, I took that photo about right over here. And then there's this massive development. This is off of 56th Avenue and about Piccadilly. This massive development that's occurring throughout this entire area through here. So to account for all this stormwater runoff, in that as I said, we're creating new drainage ways. And you can see right here, this is a new stream system that has undergone construction. It's about 3,200 feet long, so it's not small by any means. And then there's a huge detention area right here of about 18 acres. And that another point I'd like to bring out is during my career at the district, I have seen, and I've worked in all 7 counties, by the way, is with development, what I've seen is that ephemeral drainage ways, those that only run when there's precipitation, turn into perennial drainage ways just by the amount of stormwater runoff, groundwater pumping due to sump pumps, you name it, through there. These have turned into perennial stream systems instead of just being dry stream beds like you saw in that previous photograph. So moving on to our capital and maintenance construction. This is perhaps my favoriteest capital project that happened about 2 years ago, 2-3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, off of about 72nd and Lowell Boulevard up in Westminster, Adams County. And if you'd only seen this waterway before construction ever began, you would be amazed. It was just a dump. Really not much ecological value through there. So just to illustrate what our capital construction project did, this is a light rail station that you see right here, and they've made it into a major aesthetic interactive deal here for the community. In fact, created a little lake that you see back over here. Really nice wildlife values, especially for aquatic birds and everything. So I wanted to share that with you. So let's contrast that to when I first started at the district. And why don't we take like a 10-minute break and then come back, or 15-minute break, and come back at 1:30, and then we'll go from there. All right. All right,
Mike,
thank
we
you.
did receive a question about this project. Where is it located again?
It is off of 72nd Avenue and Lowell Boulevard, and I really encourage you to go out and take a look at it. It is amazing.
Yeah, someone's saying a nature playground recently opened, I guess, in that area as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was an area that was forgotten by time. That I wish I had enough time to show you every photo that I would love to. The pre-construction photos of this horrendous. Okay, with that, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Okay, it looks like we're getting close to being back. Christina, are you there?
Yep, ready when you are.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. And thank you for allowing me to take that break. And now I'm getting a little bit hoarse. I don't usually talk all that much. So we're talking about capital and maintenance construction, and I'm showing you this fantastic project that I really love and was a huge, huge basically upgrade to the surrounding community through there. If you ever get the opportunity to visit it, please do. So moving on, I do want to talk about the evolution of our construction program, the evolution of design and construction of stream improvements. Okay, so when I first came to the district, it really felt like the main objective was to move stormwater as quickly and efficiently as possible. And so you would see structures like this one right here. And I think all of us would agree that there aren't a whole lot of water quality benefits or much benefits other than flood control at this point. There is no connection for groundwater recharge. There's no water quality treatment, maybe a little bit with the aeration that's occurring right here through this baffle chute drop and that, but you can see there's no vegetation, obviously, and that there's not a whole lot of wildlife value through here. And actually the community is kind of cut off from this for their own protection with the fencing that's put up through here. And thinking about that, the photograph that I have on the bottom right here, it reminds me of those scenes in Greece, if you all had ever watched that movie, of where they're having that car race down that huge trapezoidal channel, which, by the way, that is the Los Angeles River. And it wasn't something, looking at it, it's like, well, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's an engineering marvel and everything, but it doesn't do a whole lot for the environment, in my opinion. So then we move on to this. And this is in the Montbello Irondale Gulch area of Denver. See, from about I-70 north from Havana Street all the way to Peoria Street. And you'll notice that the stream system, you can call it a stormwater runoff system if you want, but you do notice that it's got a base flow in it right here, is contained on within these two streets. And the stream is running straight down the middle, and it's just a concrete trapezoidal section. And again, other than the little bit of landscaping that Parks had put in right here, there wasn't much value for any of the beneficial functions that you would get from a floodplain. And unfortunately, that's a pretty big area that I outlined to you. So again, that would be from Havana Street to Peoria Street, from I-70 north all the way to 56th Avenue. There's about 10 or 11 miles worth of this channel that runs through the residences and then through an industrial area. And where do you think it all dumps into? The Rocky Mountain Wildlife Refuge. And there it goes directly into a couple of ponds out there, and the incredible amount of litter, sediment, and just generally yucky stuff that ends up flowing down in there is just amazing. So not a huge fan. Let's leave it at that. So continue with this next slide. This is pretty common in older, really older developed areas within the Denver metro area through the southern part of the city. And basically what it is, it's a walled section of channel through there. The developers at the time, well, back then, the communities, the worst homes, the worst property was along any kind of a stream or drainage waste system and so they really tried to squeeze in as many homes as possible and really create this narrow, deep system of concrete channels that really don't serve a whole lot of value other than stormwater runoff conveyance. And with this particular photo, this is one of my first construction jobs with the district, and I was mightily proud of what I did. Not so much nowadays, but back then, where basically within the Lakewood area, we went ahead and did a bank stabilization project of about 500 lineal feet on both sides of the bank. As you can see, we did grouted boulders. And while I think that, for the homeowners, very, very nice homes over here in that, lots of older trees and that, we were able to save those in that. But we just kind of made this siding, basically, that really disconnects the river from its floodplain through there. So if you were a muskrat, you wouldn't have much opportunity to burrow in here. If you're a duck, you pretty much would have to fly directly in and out of the water. So really, I think it's an approach that we wouldn't take today, but at the time, years ago, this was a pretty common method of stabilizing stream banks. One of the negative things about it is it actually ends up creating more problems downstream than it solves in the area where we did the repairs. Instead, in a perfect world, this is what we like to see. Plenty of room for the floodplain, good water quality treatment, groundwater discharge. There's opportunities for wildlife here. There is a bicycle path that runs along this portion through here. So there's recreational opportunities through there. And it is between two separate subdivisions out there. The challenge is getting developers to buy into this kind of system. It's a lot of valuable land that if you piped it or you made it into one of those narrower channels that we just looked at would provide a lot more income, I guess, for that. However, what we're seeing is that developers are starting to take a fresh look at this. The most expensive homes are the ones that front this green belt through here now. We've even started a program, which is pretty cool, where we are going to private developers, the ones that build 70% of all stream improvements, and saying, listen, if you will work with us, provide us with the money that you would spend on stream improvements through here, whether it's storm water outfalls, channelization, what have you, we'll take that off your hands because that's what we do best. Building homes and infrastructure is what you do best. And in return, we'll help you manage the engineering of this, and we'll help with the permitting process on that, so you don't have to go through that frustration. And basically, we end up with systems like this one right here, which I totally like. And it's not saying that we can do that in every instance. There's places where we can't, as we'll see shortly. But where we can, especially we're creating new stream systems and waterways. This is the approach that we're taking, and we call that our fee and lieu program. And we've had about a dozen major projects around the metro area where we're doing that. It seems to be pretty well received. So again, this is one of my favorite projects in the Montbello Stapleton area, where this drainage way, or this waterway, was created out of what was basically a neglected stormwater runoff channel. This is year 3 post-construction, and I think that is the Montbello Recreation Center up to your far left. But you can see that we've reintroduced sinuosity to the channel. We've stabilized it. We've restored the native grasses, installed native trees and shrubs through there, and the wildlife values have increased tremendously. There's beaver in this area, and the aquatic birds, herons and egrets and ducks and mallards and what have you are just phenomenal out here. And there are sidewalks that line this on either side, as you can see over here on the left, and then just a tiny bit on the right. So it really is a interactive experience, as well as a flood control conveyance system for the community. So next we'll talk about routine maintenance. I'm going to kind of pick it up just a little bit. So routine and not so routine maintenance right here. And as I mentioned earlier, I am your contact point for Boulder County for all routine maintenance within Louisville, Lafayette, Boulder County, you name it, Superior, and that. So if you have any needs, I'm the guy to contact. And I would also say that the routine maintenance program is probably our most visible program that we have. These guys, our contractors, are out on a daily basis cleaning our drainage ways and helping to maintain them. All of the work that you see is requested by the local government. We don't initiate any of it ourselves. This is a partnership, and it is 100% funded by the district. So we do things such as removing this couch from the drainage way, and that we often encounter piles of tires, midnight dumping that occurs. We'll clean that up. But perhaps the most common thing we end up finding are shopping carts everywhere. So talking about scheduling with this, we are on an annual cycle of maintenance, and basically each stream system is cleaned at least a minimum of 6 times a year, and we've gone to full year on some of these. So anybody else wonder what happened to the person that was wearing those flip-flops? So anyway, I use this little video to illustrate just the incredible volume of debris that we can encounter on our waterways. And unfortunately, for our contractors, we kind of limit the size of what they pick up. We basically have them anything that is, say, pop can size or larger, anything that can be removed by a 5-ton winch out there. But it's a very labor-intensive process. We have highly qualified contractors. Not everybody likes to wade in the muck and the mud and water picking up trash, but we've found contractors that are very good at that. So some of the more unique challenges that we're all facing are how do we deal with the homeless or those experiencing homelessness. And this is a stormwater outfall to one of the largest streams in the Denver metro area. There's actually a guy who lives within that stormwater pipe. And that pipe's connected to a major highway drainage system. So the concern is, number one, for his safety. Number two, it would be for the basically the trash and the debris that is collected along here. So the slightest storm would tend to wash this all into the stream. And then right to the right of this, you can see where accessing this has created a gully to form on the bank that leads down to that outfall. So that's one of the things that we are currently trying to figure out. Well, how do we manage this along with our local government? And I know it's something that you guys have to deal with too. So just another example, and this one's much further. This is on the eastern part of the district, on the dry, basically stream through here. And if you look really closely, there's a guy here sitting in a lawn chair. He's got a really sweet looking hat on there, reading a book. But this box culvert is basically his home, and just looking at the amount of trash and debris. And I can only guess what restroom facilities, if any, that he's using through here. It's like, well, how do we effectively help those people and maintain the waterway system that we need to? Another service that we provide under the maintenance program is sediment removal. That can take place within several different types of hydraulic structures. For this one, it's the concrete low flow channel. Through there, we would remove the sediment and restore the capacity through there. I do want to mention that concrete low flows are a design element that has fallen out in favor of natural channels with the district. So when we go through the design process, whether it's in-house or through a developer, and that if we see stuff like this, we tend to see if we can get away from it and reintroduce something that will connect us back with the floodplain and as a natural system.
Mike, before you keep going, we did get a question in the chat about your previous slides. How are you discouraging or enforcing homelessness out of the row? We are having issues at CDOT under bridges and rivers in our row. Or if anyone else wants to jump in on how
Great
those issues.
question. I know that we're working with state legislators, trying to educate them about the safety aspects of this. So we don't have a clear and set answer on this. It used to be a long time ago that we would go in and just clean it all up, throw it in the back of a dump truck, and nowadays we're trying to be a little more human about it and try to talk to the people, try to work with them. but realistically, in the end, we kind of bail on it and we leave it to the local government. That because we're not an enforcement agency, but we're always there once the local government has got them to move on, where we will help with the cleanup. We have specialized contractors that help with hazardous materials removal that we often encounter along these areas. And we'll restore, whether it's with revegetation, bank stabilization, what have you, through there. So that's the best answer I have. And it's not a good one.
Thanks, Mike. And for anyone else who's interested, there's a couple people putting in the chat what their communities are doing, in case you want to reach out to them and learn a little bit more.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. So we also do sediment removal within detention facilities. And this is one where there is a concrete low flow channel that surrounds the perimeter of the detention facility here in the upper left. We will clean that out for the local government. And of course, we'll go in, as you see on the bottom right here, and we'll restore any outfalls, storm sewer outfalls that have silted in over time. Another service we provide under the routine maintenance program is tree removal. And again, this is at the local government's request. We don't initiate this type of work, but we're particularly interested in removing noxious trees as designated by the state. In this case, it would be Russian olives, like you see right here, or it might be tamarisk, or the other big one that I'm seeing, especially up in the Boulder area, is the tree of heaven. We will do tree removal on those. We have a pretty good program on doing it. However, having said that, not every tree is a bad tree. For example, this one on Cherry Creek in downtown Denver, it hasn't fallen over. It's not really adjacent to a sidewalk or a place where people would normally access, so it's not too much of a hazard through there. And so in this case, it's a great habitat tree. You know, it's a landing perch for hawks and other raptors, great for birds such as flickers and woodpeckers. It's also great for nest for raccoons and actually for bees, for honeybees and that. So, you know, we will get occasional requests, well, can you take out this tree? And we try to be really selective about what we do take out. We want the local government's approval, first of all, and then if there's any opportunity to leave it, then we would. And having said that, of course, if it's a flood hazard like this one right here, that's just kind of cottonwood that's collapsed, then yes, we would remove this as soon as you notified us or we happen to encounter it during our inspections and that. However, there's a lot of value to this material. We just don't want to throw it into the waste stream going to the dump. So if there are opportunities to repurpose it, cut it up into chunks, take it up much further into the floodplain and anchor it down to serve as wildlife habitat, allow it to basically decompose and provide nutrients to the surrounding area, then we will do that. So we also do selective tree removal in really overgrown places. And on this particular photo, what you see is the volunteer trees have come up and basically they're strangling each other. You know, it's the fight for survival, you know, who gets to the sun first and the most water and soil resources. And so in this particular instance, I have to say that people love trees. I love trees. People love their screens in urban areas. A lot of people don't want to look at their neighbor across the stream and that. So the quickest way to get into trouble is to start cutting trees willy-nilly. And what we typically do in a situation like this right here is we would say, okay, well, let's take out everything under 4 inches, or for this year, let's take out every third or fourth tree and do it as a gradual process. And of course, notify the local government, notify the citizens what we're doing, and just make it a gradual thing to where, these trees can grow up taller, stronger, and basically do a lot better through there. Another thing we encounter that we quite haven't figured out along with the homeless thing is what the heck do we do with beavers? And we have beavers throughout the district. I've seen them in places that I don't know how they got there. I have no clue. The beaver dams collect a lot of debris. However, the beaver is a keystone species. Talk about your water quality engineer. I don't think you could get any better as far as restoring the floodplain and collecting sediment, trapping sediment and everything. The problem we have is when they get into areas where it's not so great, where it actually does raise the floodplain to where it's causing bank erosion or causing a sidewalk to fail or other hydraulic structures or so. And our policy is that we won't remove beavers. That's up to the local government. What we will do is we'll pick trash off of it, very hard to do. Or once the beaver has moved on or been relocated, and that we will come in and remove the beaver dam as a debris measure through there. So on this one right here, I think if you were the park supervisor or the city forester, you might be just a little irritated to come out one morning and find out Mr. Beaver has done a really nice job of tree removal through here and that. And so that's one thing we encounter again throughout the district, in that we have a program where we'll go in and we'll paint the trees with a special blend of sand and paint, try to make it match the tree so it's not highly visible, but it kind of discourages the beaver from chewing on the trees. We also have a special beaver caging that we will install, usually best on more mature trees so that you don't end up girdling them. They do need to be maintained. And again, as I was saying, we love to repurpose materials at the district. So, if we find old riprap from a project that we're redoing, we'll try to make use of that rather than send it into the waste stream. And in this particular instance, you can see where we've repurposed a downed tree to create a drop structure through here. And you can see a little bit of the soil logs through here protecting it. So this is pretty much year one for this project right here. But I love this concept. I love the naturalness of it. Yesterday, we discussed a couple of sites where these have been in for 10 years now, and they're still functioning very well. There's always a little tweaking to do with these, but I'd much rather see this than a concrete vertical drop or just grouted boulders. All right, so let's move on to mowing. And I know that a lot of you, where we have maintained your waterways for you, you're wondering, well, why have we quit mowing? Or why have we quit mowing so much there? And actually, we've changed the language. We no longer call it mowing, we call it vegetation management. And for example, this photo illustrates a waterway where we've mowed, and you can see that all the grass is lying on the bank, ready to get washed right down into the stream. We never had grass catchers or anything of that nature. And why the really bad thing about this is, you see the homes to the left. Well, people get really used to the manicured approach, you know. And that's where we evolved from. We went from trying to mimic bluegrass parks with mowing and debris removal to what you see now. In this particular instance too, you know, well, where's the habitat for ducks along here, the fringe, and that, you know, where's the protection for their babies? And that, you know, the grass, when it's mown like this, it tends to go dormant if you're mowing it out of season, or you're mowing too short or too often. And then you've lost the water infiltration rate and increased the runoff rates down the slopes. And here's another really good illustration. So here's a park over here to the left. And again, we mowed right down to the water's edge through here. And it's not really a recreational area. You know, you can play soccer or whatever here and that. So I don't know why we did this, other than it was just a holder from the past. So what we found throughout the district, that number one, there's always a question about, well, how low or how high should grass be? And what we found, what science tells us, is that the depth of rooting decreases, maintenance increases as the mowing height decreases through here. So at one point, I think we were mowing down to 4 inches, which for native vegetation, that's a huge no-no through there. You also have to have an understanding that with native grasses, that they are really a diverse group. You know, there's a combination of cool season grasses along with warm season grasses. And when they come up, when they go to seed, you know, when they mature, and everything is different from month to month and that. So if you're not aware of what you're doing, or if you're not mowing in general for the most part, then you're affecting the vegetation's ability to regenerate itself and to provide the full slate of ecological services that a good native grass waterway system can provide. And here's, I don't know if you've ever seen this chart before. We love it in that, and this just basically lays out a whole slate of different native grasses, native flowers. And that to our left, we have the Kentucky bluegrass root system, which is just a few inches deep as compared to, say, buffalo grass over here to the far right, which you see goes all the way down to 7 feet. Now, there's a couple of really cool things about this, or important things about this. One being that with this massive root system that you see with native plants, that tends to anchor the soil in place during high runoff events, or just in general. The other point is that there is a whole host of soil organisms and the roots themselves that interact and act as a water quality device to help purify some of the water, stormwater runoff that we see come through. So then when we mow when we shouldn't, we lose that ability. So just going back real quick, 1, 2 slides, you don't see any wildflowers here. You don't see any shrubs. You really just see is really low native grass growth. And what happens is it preferentially selects for those grasses that grow lowest, as well as for weeds that can survive the mowing process. So as time went by, so this is probably the first 10 or 15 years of my career at the district, And then we really got really strong into the NPDES and the permitting parts of it. And we started figuring out, well, you know what, we better start leaving a riparian buffer through here. And then we used to, as you see, just mow right up to the edge of that. Much better, but still not where we wanted to be. A lot more wildlife friendly, a lot more water quality friendly through here, vegetation trapping sediment, and providing some chemical treatment too. So this is where we are basically today. And this is through an urban area in Denver. You can see that we don't mow through this. There's a little bit of buffer mowing. What we offer our local governments is buffer mowing. So we'll mow along sidewalks. We'll mow a 3 to 5 foot path on either side, which will allow pedestrians to take a step off if a bike is coming along, or someone to walk their dog or whatever. We'll also mow along property lines to help alleviate some resident complaints, as well as fire hazards from dry vegetative material that may be up there. But in general, what we use mowing for nowadays is just selective weed control. And we have to be very careful about what weeds we do mow, because mowing can introduce an even worse problem with some weed species that in the past we never knew. And this can take place in even the craziest places. This is in the walled section, if you're familiar with that, in downtown Denver, Cherry Creek. So Spear Boulevard runs on either side of the channel through here, I'd say 10 to 12 feet above the sidewalk elevation through here. And again, we just mow a little buffer strip along the sidewalk, and we have now allowed the vegetation to grow up in here. If you know much about Cherry Creek, in a pretty good sized storm, this will be from wall to wall across. All of this will be underwater. And so being able to retain the soil, being able to treat the water quality, you don't see a whole lot of weeds in here either. So really good native vegetation will outcompete, given time, invasive weeds.
Mike, we've got a couple questions in the chat. One, does the sediment accumulation dampen the grass growth or smother it? And does it have to be removed at some point? And if so, how is that done?
You know, in some cases, sediment can, especially if you've got a unraveling stream segment upstream, you know, severe bank erosion or channel degradation. But in general, riparian and wetland vegetation is programmed to come up through sediment accumulations. So then it becomes an exercise in, well, at what point have we lost stream capacity? Do we need to go in and reestablish the low flow channel or what have you in that? But no, I will say, however, that waterways are conduits for invasive weeds and other vegetation by nature of what they are. You know, stuff floats downstream. And sometimes you get a little more weedy infestation within sediment accumulation areas, but really the sheer amount of moisture or wetness really preferentially leads toward more wetlands vegetation.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And it does look like we've gotten a couple of questions interested in learning how the presence of weeds changes that approach to mowing height or frequency. So if you know of any other resources that we can, share out, definitely let us know.
Oh, I've got a whole nother presentation on that. That's my thing now. And that is, I really love working with native vegetation, trying to reestablish native grasses, shrubs, and trees, and trying to remove invasives. And That's not to say, I mean, there are some invasive grasses, smooth brome being one of them, that do a fantastic job of stream bank stabilization. It would be uh, ungodly trying to remove it and restore it with natives. If you maintain it well, it looks nice and that. And so really, where do you want, what's the battle that you want to fight through there? So it's not like every invasive is totally bad. We will work with what we have in that, but the really bad stuff, for example, what do we have up in Boulder? Japanese knotweed. And that is one that will ruin property values very quickly. And I have been working with the city to help them get rid of a population that's found out here. It's an invasive that people used as an ornamental plant, and it escaped from their backyard, and now it is within our drainage ways. And yeah, so love to give talks on invasive weeds. Love to talk about vegetation management and that. So just hit me up and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. So again, with the reduction in mowing, what we see is a much healthier stream network, waterway, that includes lots of wildflowers, great diversity of vegetation, and a healthier ecosystem altogether. So pollinators, nesting places for muskrats, beavers, you name it. A lot of our Colorado songbirds. And in this particular instance, on the bottom right is one just incredibly beautiful flower that grows along our drainages. And this one's called Palmer's penstemon. And that almost looks like a Venus flytrap in a way to me. And then I thought I'd throw that in there. All right, so let's see, we're at 2:14. Could we take another 10-minute break and then we'll look at permits real quick.
That sounds good. And if anyone is thinking of more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. You can send them directly to me or post them to everyone.
All right, and I'll see you back here in 10 minutes. Thank you.
All right, 2:20.
Do you think?
All right. And how are we looking for time, Christina?
We're looking great, Mike. We are scheduled to end around 3:30.
Okay. All right. How's everybody else doing? I hope this isn't too long-winded and that I usually don't, if you know me at all, I don't talk this much. So anyway, why don't we go ahead and start again, and let's talk about working in waterways permits, something near and dear to my heart. Two, I spent the first part of my career sort of feeling like the photograph in the left, are the police, you ever get that feeling like when a police car is following you, you're driving down the road, you haven't done anything wrong in that, but it's like, I really don't like a policeman following me, just in case I do something wrong or get accused of doing something wrong in that. So, but I changed that perspective, especially when it came to BMPs, stormwater management and everything. Instead of trying to be fearful in that, I learned to embrace it. And the district did too, by the way. Really, with our contractors, we have excellent working relationships. They're actually a team partner. We don't do a low bid process on our routine maintenance or on our construction projects. It's a process where the district, the engineer, and the contractor come together to find a mutually agreeable price. And our contractors know that if they need more BMPs to effectively maintain the site, that they're not going to get gouged. It is what it is, and we pay for it. So anyway, getting back to permits, let's go ahead and move on. So for the Corps of Engineers permit at the federal level, the district in general does the vast majority of its work under nationwide 404s. And I'm sure many of you are aware of those. Did you know that there's 52 nationwide permits out there? I can't name them all. But the three most common that we use are these three right here, 3, 7, and 13. They have very specific requirements with them. One of them is a pre-construction notification, in which once you receive the permit, once you are going to start the work, then you notify them, let them know what's going on. We're kind of special at the district in that we have what is called a regional general permit that is very specific to us and the type of work that we do. And basically what it is a expedited individual permit in between a nationwide and an individual permit. And that allows us to do a whole suite of flood control improvements through there. And next on the list, we have individual permits. Those, those are tough, and that those generally take a year to 2 years or so to get in place and up and running. It's a very intensive process. And I'd have to say the thing that I find, even with nationwides, is that I have to continually reread them in the permit conditions all the time, even though I've been doing this as long as I have. But it's not just me, it's our contractors. Have you given a copy to your contractor? It's one thing if the superintendent or the foreman knows what's in it, and it's another thing if the equipment operator or the laborer knows that. And so having a toolbox, or what's that, tailgate conversation with everybody saying, hey, listen, these are the things that you need to take care of and watch out for, and empower everyone to be a part of that process. So if they see a BMP that's not working, or they see something that's not being done within the permit conditions, that they say so. It's like safety. If you see something say something out there, and that helps take care of everyone. So I've got another little story. I call it "You're in a Heap of Trouble, Boy." And when I was a young inspector technician, first starting out the district, I was asked to go out and solve or take care of a erosion problem where a channel was threatening the bank next to a local government's maintenance yard. And so the manager I was working for said, well, what we ought to do is we ought to just, take out that oxbow and just, go ahead and create a radius, like an elbow or L turn, and, put in a couple small boulder drops here and that, which we did. And next thing you know, we get a call from the Corps of Engineers. Well, we've had a citizen call in about your project. Where's your permit? Turns out we didn't have a permit. So I'll kind of leave it at that, but let me tell you that by the Corps of Engineers turned it over to EPA. EPA is the enforcement arm. And boy, they're looking for examples out there. And we were a good one. And I think it ended up in total costing us somewhere around $250,000 for a $30,000 bank stabilization job that we had done out there. So I always tell everybody, you're entitled to your own experience, but if you can, learn from my mistakes out there. And I know that I've been on sites where I've seen Parks Department, trying to do a little bit of bank stabilization or doing things that are a little bit iffy out there. And then so my thing is just make sure you have your permit out there, make sure your contractor has it and understands it. What else can I tell you about that? That I'm sure all of you have some experience with permits in general. So part of getting those permits, even if it's a nationwide, and this is the part of the things that most people aren't aware of that they need to do. There's Section 106 with the National Historic Preservation Act, and that's run through the State Historic Preservation Office. And so really, I think what it comes down to, if something's older than 50 years, like me, then it's historic in that. So within waterways, it could be old irrigation canals like the Highline Canal, could be the wall. It is the walls of Cherry Creek downtown. It's wherever there are Native American artifacts. And I know that we run into those all the times. Water, of course, attracts people. We find old fire pits, arrowheads, you name it, through there. So we have to be really careful when we're doing construction projects. And as an example of that, if you're from the Denver area, the Parker area, you're aware of the 4 Mile House and the 20 Mile House on Cherry Creek. Well, those were old stage stops dating back into, mid 1800s and that. And so the possibility of finding artifacts are everywhere. And so I have another not so funny little story to go with this too. And again, early in my career, I was out doing a bank stabilization up within Boulder County. And I met with the town engineer and we went out and looked at the project site. There was some bank erosion occurring. And we were going to, with his cooperation, go ahead and stabilize that, doing some riprap work. And we happened to run across a bunch of this really nice pink stone that was laying on site and everything. And he said to us, well, feel free to use this, no problem. And so our contractor came in, of course, did a bang up job with the bank stabilization and riprap. He used every bit of that stone, and man, he took his bucket and he pounded it into the bank and everything, plated it really nicely in that. Well, that afternoon, we got a call from that town engineer saying, hey, stop. that rock that you saw there, that was the foundation of one of the earliest houses in the town. And I, unfortunately, I had to tell him, well, you know, sorry, our contractor's already installed. In fact, he broke it into little pieces through there that are lining the bank through there. So yeah, making sure that you do a survey, archaeological survey through there, know where your sites are. We use consultants to do that for us before we go out and do any type of soil disturbing activity. We also do the Fish and Wildlife Section 7 Endangered Species Act surveys. Maybe like, for example, the Prebble's mouse, the Ute lady's tresses that you see here in the center, and the burrowing owl. Don't have to worry too much about Prebble's up in Boulder County. However, you guys do have a pretty good size population of the Ute lady's tresses. In fact, it was rediscovered within the state in Boulder County. Oh, I'd say maybe about, I want to say 1990 or so. In that. So again, before we do any type of project, depending on where we're at, we'll do surveys for various types of endangered species, whether they're plant or animal, through there. One special thing about the district is that we have worked with Fish and Wildlife to establish block clearance zones where we've sent contractor consultants out on specific reaches of streams, and they've actually done the surveys and found that none of that existed. And so then we're free to go ahead and do projects. It just kind of helps accelerate the process, especially when it comes to a regional general permit or an individual permit through there. Another one that we deal with is the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Pretty cool little site here in Denver. Basically, this is Parkfield Lake near Pena Boulevard and about 56th Avenue. I never knew that we had penguins, or not penguins, but pelicans in Colorado. In that, but if you really want a good wildlife, aquatic bird watching experience, that's the place to go for some reason or another. And that we actually had one of our consultants put together a manual for our field crews, as well as our inspectors and construction people, that tells us how to remain in compliance with the act. There are very specific guidelines about what distance you have to be, what season you can operate in, etc. And another little video just to illustrate this point, and take a look at the ducks just wandering by our water diversion point on this small stream that you see here. You'll see mama cruising through. You know where.
Hey, Mike, could you just take a step back and repeat what you said? It was a little choppy and hard to hear.
Okay, sorry about that. Now, and you told me about that before, Christina, so I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is an area where we were establishing some water control along a small stream, and being aware of what wildlife is, what wildlife there is around you, and taking care of them. And in this particular one, you know, they got out of the stream, walked around the construction equipment, and then went ahead and entered the upstream portion through there. And it's just a really good illustration of that. So we'll move on. And of course, everybody knows that the red-winged blackbird is a super good indicator of wetlands through there. However, we find, as you see in this upper right photo here, oh, sorry, let me go back. right here. So these are the mud swifts and that just love to be in our bridges, underneath our bridges and box culverts, where we have bicycle paths and everything. So looking all around, trying to figure out, what are we going to affect? When are we going to affect it is really important. And on this bottom photo here, you can see where we've actually completed the bank stabilization. We have our erosion control blanket in. We actually have some grass coming up through, and baby ducks are just enjoying a really nice little sunning there along the South Platte River. So then we deal with state permits. It's not enough that we have federal, we have state, and that's good. We help us maintain our water. And so, of course, the ones that we deal with are the stormwater discharge permit. We also do the dewatering permit and the DMRs that come along with that. And we also do, we'll talk about contaminated areas too. So having said that, let's see here. I think I might just be a little bit out of, no, we're good. All right, so yeah, so I'll just talk to that. We all know about the stormwater discharge permit. We're probably all experts in it, what the, how to put together a stormwater management plan, how to inspect BMPs, and I won't get into that. We also, as a normal course of business with work within waterways, especially with hydraulic structures, is we end up getting a dewatering permit, and that's more to take care of the groundwater and the nuisance flows that follow stream systems through there. They're not deep wells. They're typically 2 to 3 feet below the lowest point of the structure, whether it's a drop structure or what have you. And that's just to prevent groundwater, say, intermixing with concrete during placement, and allow the crews a place to work safely, as well as provide for a stable base for installing concrete and boulders. As far as the contaminated areas go, we have encountered on our stream systems, there are places in Denver where, and I'll talk more about this in just a minute, where there's radium contamination within the soil. So off of the South Platte River, there's a stream system that outfalls into it, where there was a radium processing medicinal plant that basically buried all their waste on site. And during the course of construction, we had to remediate for that. We've also done projects up in the Globeville area, the old Arsoco smelter. And I think on that particular project, where we were doing a stream restoration project, the water treatment cost ended up being close to $1 million before the end of the project, with the treatment train that it required. We'll also see in a minute, especially along Denver, but usually along a lot of old farm drainage ways, and that was the place, those were the places, the banks, the gullies, eroded areas where a lot of trash got thrown, and kind of, you never went to the dump, you just took it down and threw it in the drainage way. So we have our contractors, they apply for stormwater management permits. They're primarily responsible for having a qualified stormwater inspector. We do hire a third-party inspection firm to double check on them. As I said before, our contractors have the capacity to modify and improve their stormwater management as they see fit out there, to make sure that we're taking care of it. We don't ding them if they ask for more erosion control blanket or log. This frees them up to focus on what they do best, hiring these water quality experts. So, and then there's local permits, and those would be the local government where typically it's a mixture of the county and the local government one. Parks Department permits, Public Works departments, that's access permits, the construction activities, the stormwater discharge. Street cut, the end, as you can see with this graphic, is just endless. And when you have one or more than one or two projects going at a time, in that it is a real balancing act between all of these to make sure that you are in compliance, that you're reporting as you need to be, and that you're basically just doing the best job that you can. One other quick thing that we do, whether it's on a routine maintenance level with our contractor or whether it's with our construction contractor, is we're aware of invasive species and not necessarily just weeds, although they're a part of it. We also deal with aquatic species too. And so our contractors have special, I want to call it treatment fluids and treatment regimes with steam and that to clean their equipment, their personal boots and stuff like that, so that we don't end up transferring a problem from one stream to another as they go about their route on a daily basis. And for example, in Boulder, I know that you have the New Zealand mud snail in a couple of places, and that's one that we don't want to have get any more out of hand than it is. And this is where I was talking about I'm a little bit out of sequence here. So with the groundwater discharge permit, as I was saying, here's the downstream end of a construction of a drop structure that's being constructed. We've installed a couple of sumps. Typically, they're only a couple of feet deep. They're a slotted pipe system where a pump is put in, a sump pump, and then they are surrounded with rock to help prevent sediment from entering the pump, and they're to help keep the site dry and to prevent contamination from occurring. And again, speaking of the hazardous material or just the dumps that we run into, and this is a picture of Cherry Creek, pretty close to Josephine Street. And the stream is down here, and this is the dump at the time. And basically, yeah, when we end up doing along the a large part of Cherry Creek, especially upstream of the walled section, we encounter this, and so it ends up being a major remediation project for us to be able to ecologically restore the site. So when it comes to permits, this is kind of what I'd like to leave you with. Don't be that guy. Reread your permits and then reread them again. Okay, moving on to construction real quickly. Here's an example of the transformation of the district from using strictly concrete hydraulic structures or grouted boulders. This is a sculpted concrete drop structure. It's perhaps not the most aesthetic example in my opinion, but it's getting there, and it's trying to replicate the mud flats and exposed bedrock that you'd probably find along a stream system. And if you look real carefully over here on the bottom right, you can see we even put in a couple of fake deer footprints in that to kind of make it look that way. But this is one of the ways that we're trying to evolve the way we do major drainage improvements through here, with the ultimate goal of creating systems that are self-sustaining, that are self-repairing out there. And that gets back to that one photo I showed you of basically it's just a natural channel with wonderful floodplain connectivity, groundwater with recharge, etc. And this is another one. I think this one's a lot more aesthetically pleasing through here. You can see, and I may replay this, the main low flow channel is over here. So this is meant for a really long, a really wide channel section through here. I'll play it again. But they've done a really good job. They use specialized texture mats to create this finish through here. We really try hard to avoid that broomed finish that you see so much with concrete, or finish that would be left by a trowel through there. You can see watering holes for birds to bathe in or deer to drink out of, and then I think in general this is much better received. We try to match the existing soil color as much as possible too. All right, so what do you guys think? Is this a constructed hydraulic feature, or is this just a normal riffle in a stream system? I'll give you a couple seconds. So this is actually a constructed grade control structure, a riffle drop, we call it. And while it's not completely natural, it sure mimics it. What I love about this particular one is it allows water to basically course through the material, over and under the material, and that so that you have full contact for a variety of aquatic insects for water treatment purposes. It looks totally natural out there. There's aeration occurring through there. And you wouldn't know that we'd been in there and restored this particular site through there. And yes, you do get a little bit of migration of material, but we've excuse me, come up with a system that we think really works really well for us. And I'll show you that here next. And what it is it's called a basically void fill riprap. And it is a mixture of different materials ranging from sand to crushed rock, 3/4 inch, to riprap, river cobble, and in situ material. And in this particular case, it's being installed in a very sandy drainage way. In fact, the riffle drop I saw that you saw earlier was immediately upstream of this particular one through here. So water is allowed to percolate completely through this. It's an awesome structure. You see the grade right here. Okay, so that's in contrast to your standard grouted boulder drop structure. And while it is perhaps a little bit better than just a solid concrete mass out there aesthetically, and that there are a lot of negatives to it, in my opinion, in this particular photograph. I mean, you can see the amount of boulders that they've had to install, and right now they're working on pouring concrete in between the boulders, as you see up here. And then let me just show you the structure. This is out east near DIA in a new subdivision that's being built. So this is a brand new stream system where really not much of a stream system existed before. And take a look at the size of this. So you can see the dewater sump again at the very downstream center of this structure. If you consider that a dump truck can probably haul 4 or 5 of these boulders at a time, that's a massive number of trips, not to mention how much of the mountain we had to take down to bring this rock through here. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of them. Yes, they can you can do things to them to pretty them up through here. I don't have any photos of that. Planting wells would be one. Another is we typically take the grout only halfway up the boulder, and then we install soil with vegetation in the areas behind there, so that you see very little of the boulder itself. You see a lot more green through there.
Hey, Mike, we've got a couple questions in the chat. Going back to the previous slide, how are you maintaining the mix of the soil-filled riprap, and is that mixed on site?
It is mixed on site. That's a great question. And I have to tell you that it is part science and mostly art when it comes to putting that together. And that you have to, the thing is you want this matrix to lock together as tightly as possible. And so it's a pinch of that and a pound of that out there. I wish I could tell you that it's a precise measurement, 1/7 of all the different materials that go into it. It is a mixing process with not only with the loader, bringing it to the actual dump site, but then with the equipment operator continuing to mix that in the different materials and get it the way you want it, and then to have another piece of equipment come in and basically compact it into place.
Thanks. We've got another one here. Does Mile High Flood District require soil-filled riprap to be seeded and blanketed, or just seeded? Note, not the void-filled riprap.
So with void-filled riprap, typically not, because that's a actual in-stream structure. In other words, the water surface is coursing over it. Now with bank stabilization, we have what is called soil riprap, where we do require topsoil to be placed 6 inches on top of it, and then for it to be blanketed over the top of it.
Okay. And another question in here, any good examples of projects that had to design around fish species, like fish ladders at diversion structures or grade control structures?
Great question, and we're getting to that. I'm excited that someone asked me that.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Okay. So having said all that and being somewhat negative about grouted boulder drop structures, I know as a construction manager and as a pseudo engineer that you can always not have one. And here's an example. This is up near Red Rocks amphitheater on a stream section, and it is extremely steep. It's probably a 12-foot drop in a really short distance. And so in this particular instance, we installed grouted boulders. However, you notice that in between the drop structures, we did install wetlands planting basins through there. And this is probably year 2 post-construction. And although there's still some work to be done, you can see this little access road type of thing here that's not been revegetated very well through here. It's not bad for what it is. In fact, maybe one could argue that, well, maybe it just matches all the red rock that's out there anyway. And just a real quick tour of that. All right. Okay, so what about this one right here? And when I first went out on this site, I was kind of scratching my head thinking, okay, well, damn nice job, pardon my language, doing mulching on the upper bank area. And now the lower bench, great blanket job there. Your willow stakes in, you've done some wetlands planting, but what about the stream itself through here? We've left that bare. Isn't that going to blow out on us if there's a higher flow? And the answer to that is, rather than trying to force a low flow channel in this instance, we're allowing the base flow to create its own meandering path within there. And then at that point, we'll come back in and we'll reseed with wetland seed and with wetlands plugs in the wetted perimeter areas that you see through here. Excuse me, and get that stabilized through there. I think one of the biggest lessons we learn in waterways is we don't have all the answers. The stream is going to do what it wants to do, and to try to artificially construct sinuosity and everything just doesn't work as well. Again, the stream will do what it wants to do. So you remember at the beginning of the presentation, I said, man, I have the best job in the world. And this is the only bit of whining I'm going to do on this presentation. But over the years, I felt like I was screaming or shouting into the wind, trying to educate contractors and people about water quality or about stormwater management, BMP installation, maintenance, and stuff like that. And I know that probably like you've probably heard some really wild excuses about why something wasn't done or why something wasn't installed correctly. And so I thought this little graphic kind of fit the bill for that. And this is a good example. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples of this. And it's obvious. There's a vehicle tracking control system that's been installed here. And the trucks are shortcutting it. And not only are they hitting the root zone of this tree and destroying what good vegetation is right here, but over here on the right, you can see the same thing. But it makes sense. I don't know too many dump trucks that can do a 90-degree turn and hit this VTC exactly head on. And so a more proactive site supervisor would have said, well, really what I need to do is I need to swing this VTC out this way and either tell them to come in one way or the other, and then fence this off, and fence off the valve boxes over here to make this work. In fact, it would have been great if he discovered that on his own, or as I say, if you empower everybody on site, your laborers, say, hey, boss, this isn't working, let's figure this one out. And I know as a stormwater inspector, if you're driving up to the site, say you're coming in this way, and you're looking at this silt control fence, then by the time you get over here, you've already started putting a list together in your mind of things that could possibly go wrong. And it's just kind of, well, let's move on to the next one. So there's an old idiom to get someone's goat, and its meaning, and I love this one in the bottom right, my goat has been got. And perhaps my biggest goat is when I walk out onto a site for the first time. I won't say where this one is. What I will tell you is I was shocked. This is on a major stream system. In fact, just upstream of it is a major active stream system. There's not a single BMP in sight anywhere, and all you see is this real erosion. You see water collected down in the bottom of the channel. And I always wonder myself, well, how's this contractor making money? He's got to go back and regrade all of this. He's got to dig it out of the center of the channel. He's got to hire a surveyor to come back and recheck all the grades through here. in that he's actually building a drop structure down here that is filled in with silt. That's not easy to clean out through there. On this particular site, let's see if I can, I'm kind of missing the aerial on it, but let me just say that it was probably an 85 acres of disturbance without a single BMP on it. It wasn't my project. It was one that I was doing under our maintenance eligibility project that was being built by a private developer there. I don't have enforcement authority on this one. Kind of makes me wonder who did. But moving on. So the first rule of working in waterways is water control. Second rule is water control, always water control. On this particular one, this is in the northern part of the metro area, and that the contractor, again, not a district project, is creating a brand new drainage way through here. And so his dewatering effort, so that he could work in the dry, was to build this diversion channel through here. And you can see the obvious slumping that has gone in here, the down cutting that has occurred. And so all of this material is moving out and ends up in a wetland system right before it hits its tributary to an even bigger stream system downstream. And I'm wondering, well, where did he get his plan for a water division? Who approved this stormwater management plan? All right, so then we go to this one right here, and maybe it's a little bit better. I don't think it is myself in that, but again, it's a unlined water diversion around a drop structure bridge crossing box culvert that's being installed over here. So they're taking the stream and diverting it around through here. Really, it's vertical surfaces that are actively eroding into the stream right here, all the way through. And then just take a little look here. And it's going directly into this pipe. It crosses the roadway directly into a wetlands area, which then directly enters another stream system through there. And again, it's like, well, let's just take a look at the steepness of these slopes through here. There's not a single BMP in place. And I'm wondering, this was just a couple of years ago. It's like we've had all this education, all this experience for years. Why isn't it getting where it needs to be? So talking about water diversion, and I have seen a multitude of different types. This is one that was really unique. I thought, well, God, that's kind of cool. They've got this kind of a tube, a water tube that runs along the entire stream. They can dewater this portion of it to do their stream improvement. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. Of course, now there's no connectivity to the air or anything. And then my concern is, well, you see these housing residents, what if somebody came over and just poked a hole in that? Man, we're in really big trouble. So maybe not the best system that we have out there. So moving on, let's see here. Here's one that I think is great. They've done a really good job. They've diverted around the work site. They've lined the channel through here. They have riprap at the upstream end. And let's just play this one real quick. Again, the channel's going in down over in this area here. But I think they've done a really good job through here. And this is on Cherry Creek, which is a major stream. All right, another example here. Really good job lining it. A heck of a flow that's going through there. Yes, it's winter, so really not a lot of opportunity for things to happen. He's installed his log along the top and staked it in. And then this is on the South Platte River, which is obviously the biggest river we have in the Front Range within the district itself. And in this particular one, we're going to replace this. This is where we saw the deer earlier. We're going to replace this structure right here and put in a new bridge crossing for the public. And then we're going to fix the stream. We're going to do some massive stream improvements going back upstream at least 2 blocks. So the contractor has installed a lined channel through here. He's taken account the grade differences, installed riprap there to account for that so it doesn't erode. And then he's begun his sheet pile installation to isolate the bank stabilization work that is going to take place for about 300 feet further downstream this way. And I'll show you that real quick. And here he's got his sheet pile totally installed. This is pre-construction. We're redoing all of this bank, this bridge through here. Our water quality treatment train equipment has not showed up yet in that, but at that point, they'll effectively dewater this area so that the contractor can work in the dry and prevent sedimentation from occurring out in the main flow of the stream. Okay, almost there, guys. So let's talk about revegetation next. And that's one thing that I do love to talk about. Anytime we disturb a project, whether it's us as the city, the county, or the district, or whether there's a storm event such as the floods of 2013, it's a reset for revegetation. You saw what the root systems look like on native grasses and flowers and that, and many of those will grow up to 15 feet. However, that doesn't happen overnight. That takes a long time to reestablish.
Mike, before you dive into revegetation, we did get a question in the chat. Have you had any experience with turbidity curtains as the last line of defense down gradient from work area? Not just the control.
I have, and I do. We have had projects where we've used them, and they're really good on major stream systems, and that on the little ones, not so much, because you don't have that much of a water surface, elevation gradient between bottom of stream and the top in that. But yes, we have, and it's an area that I feel that we could explore a lot more. So, work with us and see if we can't try something out.
Thanks.
Okay, so here's, this is in Arapahoe County. And it's after or during a major storm event has occurred. You can see the sidewalk right here. And once the storm has passed, the runoff has gone downstream, you could pretty much just step across this portion of the channel down here. But look at what the vegetation, the grasses have done. They've basically laid down and they've protected the soil from migrating, eroding out on here. And so this is where we are really trying hard to emulate what nature does with natural vegetation on our projects. So, but not all that is green is gold. This is another project site where I was asked to come out and provide construction acceptance on it. And the stream itself is right here. And this is the uplands, upper bank area that they disturb. And I was asked, well, and the vegetation is fantastic out here. In that I think we're good to go on this. You can go ahead and issue final acceptance and go out there. And this is my boss, Teresa Patterson. And all we're seeing is an invasive weed called kochia through here. Well, number one, when it goes to seed, all that seed is going to get washed downstream and basically invade other riparian areas that are struggling in that. It is an annual that dies out come the end of summer and leaves exposed soil everywhere. It outcompetes native vegetation like you wouldn't believe through there. So a really big point when it comes to that is just because it's green out there doesn't mean that you've got a good system. You haven't successfully restored your site. Having said that, though, I don't get too overly excited that first year. I know that weeds are going to, they're programmed by evolution to come up first, grow the tallest, and outcompete everybody else. So as long as I've got a good weed management program in place that is actively out there checking on it and taking care of it, I know that the native grasses will come up and that they'll establish themselves and basically begin to outcompete the invasives. So as an inspector, construction manager, I know that if I go out to a site and it looks like this after 2 years, that I have a really big problem in that. So in this particular instance, I think what we're seeing is the ground was overly compacted before it was seeded, or it might be a combination of a really poor seeding technique along with compaction. Who knows for sure? But what we do know is that the erosion control blanket is basically photo-degraded to the point of where it's really not providing much stormwater protection through there. And it's a do-over for the contractor. Now he's got to rip that blanket up, re-rip the soil, probably test the soil to make sure that it isn't something to do with the soils itself, and then reseed, and then restart the clock all over again. And if I'm telling you it's a 1 to 3 year process to get the vegetation established, to get the weeds knocked back, and that's a long time with a backload of projects like that. And we can also tell this is that same drainage way looking upstream. Basically, if you've got mullein like this, these invasive weeds that have come in, mullein and thistle, these are the second year form of that vegetation. It takes 2 years for it to flower and bolt up like that. So really, the developer hasn't done any type of management through here, whether it's reseeding, when you look at these bare areas like we looked at before and up over here, he hasn't done any weed management either. And so once again, he's going to have to tear everything apart and start the clock all over again. And you want to see some unhappy faces when you have to tell somebody that.
Hey, Mike, we have a question about irrigating new plantings. Are you usually applying water to these new plantings? If so, how much do you usually need?
Yes and no. It just depends on the circumstance. If we can partner with the local government to tap into an existing system, if it's within a green belt, or whatever, we will do that. We will do what is called basically a throwaway system, where we go ahead and put in the system, and then once the vegetation is established, everything's looked good, we just abandon it in place. Or we may be doing an above ground system that we can remove at a later date. And depending on the size of the project, right now I'm working on a couple places in Boulder where we actually truck water in, and the crews water the trees and shrubs and the wetlands plants by hand with the truck. Love when we can irrigate, and I'm very thankful to the city of Boulder for providing us with a tap permit through there. I recommend it if you can. However, like in this particular instance right here, the cost of irrigating would be astronomical. And so, no, this is a site that will just be left to, hopefully with a good site preparation and with good timing. In other words, it's not during the middle of the summer, maybe the beginning of spring or late fall. We'll get enough moisture saturation on this to where we'll do well. But who can say with the drought that we've had the last few years, right? And that it's a tough business, and with revegetation, rarely are things guaranteed. So I just wanted to show you some of the effort that goes into site preparation. And this is on a new stream system that was constructed. And here there are and basically they're just putting out soil amendment through there in order to increase the organic content in really poor soils to where we can get good vegetation establishment going. And this is the uplands area, and the stream system is actually back over here.
Mike, how do you feel about reseeding on top of degraded blanket?
Not in favor of it. And that's a good question, Christina. One of the things that we make use of is jute mesh blanketing in there, which actually has small spaces in there to where we can lift the blanket, shake seed in, and then let it back down. In most cases, I see it as a failure, and that just seeding on top of existing blanket like that. You need to have good seed soil contact. You need to be able to keep it in place. On this particular one photo, if you look across the stream itself, they've done a wonderful job of using a couple of different types of stabilization of mat through here. The lower part is for the high velocity areas. The other colored lighter blanket is for the lesser velocities. And then of course, on the uplands, they've just done straw mulch by hand. And in this particular case, in this uplands area here, they're doing the crimp straw approach. But if you haven't prepared your seed bed properly, it's only got a couple of inches of loose soil in it, you're not going to be successful. So it really takes involvement by a ecologist or other type of person, parks personnel that know what needs to take place, because a construction contractor in general doesn't have that knowledge. And for that matter, at the district, we have highly specialized revegetation contractors. We take that part of the contract away from our construction contractors to let them focus on building, and then these other contractors to focus on the ecological restoration part of it. And that otherwise, you end up with a low bid a revegetation contractor. It's the last part of the project to get on site, and it just doesn't get it done as well as I'd like to see.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, and so this is just to illustrate. Go ahead.
Sorry, it seemed like you were frozen, but go ahead. We're hearing you better now.
Okay, so this is just to illustrate that uplands, non-irrigated revegetation can be successful. The stream system is actually over here. This is the maintenance road, and then here's the other disturbed area for when the bridge was installed. And you can see the rows of drill seeded grass are coming up really well as it is across the way here. And at the district, we try out a whole host of different methods. On this particular one, we have logs that have been pre-planted with wetlands vegetation to help protect that raw edge along the stream post construction, as well as wetlands mats that get installed in the upper areas. And this is I believe this is year 1.5 within the city of Denver. And overall, it's looking pretty good.
Hey, Mike, we have a couple more questions in the chat, if you don't mind. So I think this was for the last slide. What time of year was that drill seed installed in the photo that you showed?
It was in October.
Oh, mid to late fall. And
Yeah,
then do
maybe.
you encounter, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Another question, do you encounter times that the blanketing used along the water edge, strangling the vegetation, trying not to come up, or not getting enough sunlight?
Absolutely. There are some erosion control blankets out there that I don't think you could stick a pin through for the most part. And we tend to discourage their use. We have several different types that we do encourage. As I said before, the jute mesh blanket, which has open spaces among it. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll take either straw mulch or something similar and put that in between the soil and the jute mesh, have it overlay it in that to just help keep all the soil in place, but yet still allow the precipitation to infiltrate and the vegetation to come up. So no, all erosion control blanket is not equal. And you can sure get some that will withstand any erosive forces from velocity runoff, but they sure won't grow much, if anything.
And you mentioned some that the Mahi Flood District might recommend using. Is there somewhere on the website that people can go to see, some of the recommended tools?
Yeah,
And
volume 3 of the criteria manual.
thanks. And then just one more question on that drill seed. So do you have advice on the best time to drill seed in the non-irrigated areas? So would that be October, or for non-irrigated, would that be another time of year?
There's a couple of different schools of thought on that. One is once the ground isn't frozen anymore, then that's a good time. So say late March, April is a good window, as well as before the first deep freeze occurs. And well, for example, now we haven't had a deep freeze, and here it is almost Thanksgiving. So we're still doing active reseeding on some projects and that, but typically I would say late September to 1st of November too. And what that allows for is just the precipitation that comes in to help that seed along. Some grass seed species, they require cold exposure to cold, in order to break out and basically begin growing and that. So that's another thing you have to keep in mind if you're trying to seed during the summer and you install a mix of warm and cool weather grasses, which you should be, and that a part of them won't come up at all.
All right, thanks, Mike. And just to let you know, we do have about 10 minutes left. It's about 3:20. Do you
Okay.
think you'll need more time than that to keep going?
I won't. I'm just about there.
All right.
Okay, so what can we do better? Education, whether it's us getting educated ourselves. And I think that's what I like about Christina's organization. I also like the erosion control organizations that we have. The district puts on a conference every year. I don't know if many of you have attended that, but we actually have an environmental part of that we speak to. Whether it's taking courses yourself on whatever is related to your stream system, that's always an awesome thing. There are so many professional certifications that you can have. The array is just amazing out there, but it goes beyond that. I love teaching people, whether it's people I run into out in the field, whether it's a contractor or whatever. Here's the intent behind what I'm asking you or what we're doing out here, and education has to be first. The next is, and this addresses the question about wildlife and fish passage. I don't think we do a really good job on that. That is a failing that I'd like to see addressed sometime in the near future within the district and with our local governments too. And I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, but when we install culverts, we do roadways, we end up just with situations that we could better fix. The next one would be ecological diversity. Don't just plant grasses out there. Let's put in a whole slew of plants out there, whether it's shrubs and trees and grasses, especially wildflowers. And these are all things that make our planet a lot nicer place to be and a more beautiful look on our waterways through there. And as I mentioned before, innovation. There are some really cool things out there to try to help protect our water quality. And I'll address that in just a second. So when I talk about fish passage and aquatic passage, just really quick, here's a book that I'm willing to bet none of you have ever seen before, but it talks to, our smaller stream tributaries as being nurseries for our larger stream systems. And so minnows and other aquatic organisms, frogs, amphibians, they go back and forth between the big streams and up into the small streams, to have their young and so forth. And so if we can create passages for them, and I'm even talking raccoons and skunks or what have you, and that, if we can do like wildlife crossings do with our aquatic passages, and that, I think, I would love it. There's nothing I hate worse than driving around past the drainage and seeing a dead raccoon in the road because it was forced up and out of the system. And going with that real quick, this is a structure that I helped build on Cherry Creek. And while aesthetically, it's an architectural marvel, right? Through there, it's got all these really cool things. And this is actually fiber reinforced concrete through here. This is a 12-foot drop right here. And Cherry Creek Reservoir is just slightly further up here. There's no chance for fish to migrate further upstream. I looked at how high a salmon can jump. It's about 12 feet. And actually I was wrong. This is 16-foot drop. And so not doing stuff like that anymore is really a good way to go. This is a fish passage that we installed on a project, and it's a series of stormwater pipes that were cut in half. And then the fish, were supposed to be able to migrate up the drop structure through here. Well, the bad thing is it just became a feeding trough for aquatic birds to just sit here and then just blam, eat all the minnows that were trying to go up that way. The other was just the heat island with all this concrete and boulders here. It makes for a pretty hot system for aquatic vegetation and insects to survive. I think we can do better than doing the grouted boulder drop structures that we have. I mean, they're beautiful. They function perfectly in that, but would you want to be one of the people that lives or goes on vacation here and has to look at this quarry right here? And granted, one day they'll cover it up and cap it in that, but who knows when that's going to be and whether you're going to be alive or not. And let's see, I think just real quickly, once again, uplands area, lots better, why not install trees along there? There'll never be houses or anything here. Trees, shrubs, let the grasses grow, improve the diversity, reduce the amount of soil that's exposed that run down into the creek. This is a level spreader. This is awesome for outfalls rather than going into the stream itself, allowing the pipe to dump directly in the stream. These level spreaders catch the trash and debris on the inside. They get cleaned out by a maintenance crew. They spread the flow out over a larger area. This is my best example of it. And allow that water to infiltrate and get treated before it ever enters the stream system. And pretty close to last, a pretty cool invention here where somebody has figured out a system to collect all the little stuff that I said before our contractor won't pick up. And while this may not be the best system in the world, at least it's a step in the right direction, right? And I think it's probably cheaper to have a contractor pull these bags out than it is to walk with 5 or 6 guys by hand trying to pick this up by hand. So that's basically it, guys. And that I sure appreciate you putting up with me for this. And I just want to leave you with this slide right here and open it up to questions.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you taking the time to present and talk about your experiences, both the good and the bad, and answering everyone's questions. So like you said, if you have any final questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We can address those. Otherwise, we'll be following up with an email with the evaluation form, hopefully a good recording of this training, and possibly a couple of resources that we talked about today. Yeah, lots of thank yous for you, Mike, in the chat. But I'm not seeing any questions yet.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Christina, for having me.
Oh, okay. We did get a question. What do you use for fish ladders at drop structures? So I know you said that's something that we can improve on.
You know, there are actually a lot of really good examples out there. However, they're on more of the major streams that we have, the St. Vrain, you know, that nature. I haven't seen any really good examples. And part of that is because I don't think Fish and Wildlife is terribly interested in the urban areas for the most part. Yeah, maybe so on Boulder Creek, where, you know, we have trout near Ebbenfine Park and all the way downstream for quite a distance, and on Bear Creek and a few others. But really, when you think about where things are and where they could be, and trying to improve our minor tributaries to allow for fish passage, and that, love to see some innovation there. They just don't do real good with riprap or concrete.
All right, we can stay on another minute or so, but so far I'm not seeing any more questions. Just again, a lot of thank yous to you, Mike. Great presentation.
Well, I appreciate that. Don't, you know, hit me up. See me out in the field. You want to give me a call at the office, whatever. I have lots of other topics that I can go more in depth in, and look forward to meeting each and every one of you.
All right, well, I think we can go ahead and wrap up there. I'll include Mike's contact information in that follow-up email. But yeah, thank you all for attending. Again, please fill out that evaluation form. That really helps us decide what trainings to put on in the future and get ideas for what topics you want to learn more about, and what people you want to hear more from.
All right. And everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. All right, bye everyone.